Hi there, this is Tom Horseman again, and welcome to part 2 of the Beginner's Guide to Speedrunning Inscryption any percent. This video is going to cover Act 2 of the game. Um, so let's get into it. So Act 2 is super different from Act 1, whereas in Act 1 you've got these guidelines, but you're improvising a lot, trying to just make the best deck that you can out of the random cards that you're presented with. Um, in Act 2, you're going to be building the exact same deck every single run by buying the cards from the shop. In order to buy the deck that we're going to be playing, we will need a total of 24 foils that we get from dealing overkill damage. So that deck is going to be 19 copies of Skeleton and 1 copy of Ouroboros. And once we have it assembled, it's going to win every fight except the boss fights on turn 1, and the boss fights are also going to be deterministic. There's no randomness. They just have a couple phases, so they take a tiny bit longer. So we start off by buying, by selecting Grimora's deck, and we're going to auto-complete it. By auto-completing, this clover will spawn in this room. Oh, I'd like to mention real quick that this route was developed by current world record holder Shadow the Past, and it's really cool. There are previous routes that were just a lot less consistent, and I think harder to execute and harder to explain, so I'm very glad that we've got this one now. So our first fight is going to be against Sawyer, and in this fight, the only objective that we absolutely must do is to get, a minimum of 4 points of overkill damage, and by doing so, getting 4 foils. Those 4 foils will allow us to buy the bone heap, and then the bone heap will get us the next 20 foils that we need in our second fight against Kaycee. So in this first fight, all of Sawyer's cards except for the Bonehound are brittle, which means that once they attack, once they die. So once we survive that initial kind of onslaught, basically, we can just pass turn until we have all of our like 2/2s or just any like powered cards, while keeping an eye on our deck, how many cards we have left in it. Sure. Okay. I think this is... Well, this is certainly going to get us the 4 foils that we need. We could gamble to try and like optimize a little bit more, but we really don't have to. Okay, so we got 7 foils, which means that we will need to get 17 in our next fight. We're just grabbing these epitaph pieces while we pass them. So in this shop, I'm going to buy the bone heap, and then as many skeletons as I can afford. Before I fight Kaycee, I need to remember to actually add the bone heap to my deck. And I'm adding some other random stuff. As far as what cards I'm adding, unfortunately, there's not really a great way to explain it. You just have to play through these fights enough times that you understand which cards will help you win. And most importantly, help you stay alive because of how these like very aggressive revenants and such work, right? So in this fight, the most important thing, which is RNG, there's nothing we can do about it, is to just try and get these gravediggers down as fast as possible, preferably in front of the Dragers so that Revenants won't spawn in and kill them. So just like last fight, once we survive the initial rush, we can just hit and turn a lot. And what we're trying to do is get a bunch... Oh, should have played that Gravedigger, but it's fine. Perfect, got all these Gravediggers nice and early. Try and farm up a bunch of bones now. So we needed, what, 17 damage? So once we have 34 bones, we can have our bone heap in play and kill from there. So the bone heap, you can pay 2 bones to increase its power and health. So once we farmed up these bones, you can just keep hitting it. If you've accidentally blundered a little bit and miscounted, you can use this hammer here to smash your own cards to get a few extra bones. But if you have the Gravediggers going, it's a lot faster just to end turn. So try not, we try not to rely on that, even though it's a possibility. So if you are finding those first couple fights to be really difficult, honestly, I really struggled with Act 2 setup, and I still do to some extent, even though it's gotten a lot easier with practice. So just stick with it, and you will get better. So here I want to buy skeletons until I have 8 foils left. Very important to save those 8 foils, because that's how much the Ouroboros costs. So now we're going to go over to Leshy's cabin. He's going to give us a replica of the camera. We're going to open the safe. Just like before, the code is 273. We'll buy the Ouroboros. And now our deck is complete, but we still have to grow the Ouroboros, which we will do against the Prospector. We have to snap a picture of the dog. And then we're going to take everything but the skeletons out. So the reason why this works is that the game considers some cards to be basic cards and some cards to not be basic cards. So the skeletons are basic and the Ouroboros is not. So the way that works is that you will always draw at least one non-basic card. So if the Ouroboros is the only non-basic card that you have, your starting hand is always going to be 4 skeletons and 1 Ouroboros. So we want to get the Ouroboros to be a 4/4 in this fight, because that way the Ouroboros and then the remaining skeleton will win us the fight. It would be faster in theory to make it a 5/5, and at one point and we will be having it become a 5/5, but against Grimora, she kills your entire board at one point, and if you have it as a 5/5 right away, then you're going to start dealing this excess damage, which takes some animation time. So we hold off on growing it to be too much larger until then. So we're just snapping these photos, and much like before, you might notice that my cursor isn't always over whatever target. Hitting spacebar starts conversations and interacts with some puzzle elements in Act 2. It doesn't save nearly as much time as the bell does, it's just you get lazy and start like knowing which ones, and also Act 2 gets a little bit boring once you get the Ouroboros, so like trying to learn which ones you can use spacebar for is a little bit, can be somewhat fun. Okay, so this rabbit trap was so frustrating when I first started running because I was like losing so much time like waiting for it to go in because I didn't realize that my movement made a difference. So what I just did there, you push the trap over, immediately go over to the um, space in between the top left and bottom left traps and wait. It's 100% consistent. The rabbit will just jump into your trap. Easy peasy. Um, I'll add a lemon squeezy. It's that it's that nice to know. So yeah, these fights you can see not a lot going on at this point. You just win them. Um, every non-boss fight is going to be the exact same. I'll explain what we do against the bosses for each individual boss. So, Shadow of the Past 2 developed this route is trying to find a way to do this fight a little bit faster. Um, this is how I've been doing it. It works 100% consistently, but maybe we can shave a turn some other way. We're still not sure. So in turn 1, I kill the two things, and then Leshy captures the skeleton's cost, which is 0, and then its stats for the second one. And then we only have to play 2 of these skeletons here. Again, to resist doing overkill damage. And there's a skip about to come up. So once we come back to Leshy's cabin after this light appears, if we just walked out the door, Poe and Leshy would have a conversation, and that would take up just a bit of time. So for whatever reason, if we skip to the start screen, and then we continue, the trigger for that doesn't happen, and then we don't have to watch that little cutscene. So now we'll go down to Remora's again. Oh. Yes, yes, Thomas. There we go. So we beat Royal to get the epitaph piece. Grab this one here. And now we fight Grimoire. Oh, I love Grimoire so much. I really love all the characters in this game. I think their designs and personalities are just super fun. But Grimoire is definitely my favorite. So in turn 1 here, we'll kill the Bonehound. And we really want to not play the skeleton yet. We'll play it on this turn. And enter phase 2. And in phase 2, Grimoire kills our board and returns them to our hand.
Oh, fuck.
Luke swears. It's a rude boy. And here what's really important is that you don't sacrifice the like zombie Ouroboros that she gives you, because if you do, it actually grows the original one as well, and then we have to deal with all the overkill damage. So now it's a 5-5, and our fights will be slightly faster. And now we're gonna have this camera little cutscene. I would love if we can someday find a way to skip these, but As far as I'm aware, we haven't. I say that, I know we haven't yet. So the next thing we're gonna do is Magnificus's tower. And you don't actually have to solve these puzzles like the game intended way. If you know the sigils that you need, you can just input them without solving the puzzles, which is nice for us speedrunners. I actually just have written down in my notes the direction that I need to push. So for that first one, it's left 3, right 1, right 3, because I find that easier than trying to find the sigils themselves. But whatever works for you. Remember that they alternate going up left, and then you go in the other direction. Otherwise, you just keep walking up and down the stairs. So that one is left 3, right 3, left 2. I always forget to walk up to this mage and just stand there stupidly for a half second before remembering that I have to go up and talk to her. And then this one is left 1, left 1, left 3. And we meet the hero of Act 3, which is the Lonely Wizard. Yeah, the Lonely Wizbot is basically the Ouroboros of Act 3, except there's also an Ouroboros in Act 3, but we don't pick that up in our current route, although that could end up changing. In that we will eventually be setting up a deck with the Lonely Wizbot that wins every fight on turn 1. This Magnificus fight is really straightforward with this strat. The only thing that we have to do is make sure that we don't play our Ouroboros in front of the big blocker. And then, this is very minor, but if your skeletons have the rabbit sigil, don't play those, because then you lose time. So phase 1 goes into phase 2, but nothing changes, no big gimmick. We just pass again. And then we'll fight Poe last. We do the Poe fight last because similarly to Grimora, our Ouroboros is going to die once in that fight. So it'll grow too large if we do it before Magnificus. We've got some little conduit puzzles to solve here. Spacebar allows you to input. You can either screenshot these puzzles or honestly they kind of follow basic principles. So I don't look at notes or anything for them. I just kind of remember the principle that goes into it. A lot of them have multiple solutions as long as you get the basic gist of it. So it's not a huge amount of memorization. So those first two are introductions, right? This next one, for example, you don't have to put things anywhere in particular, you just cover up the zeros. In this one here, we want to block off the -1 and then space these far apart. You can do these in whatever order. as you can see, these fights, real trivial. In this puzzle, we just cover up the bad numbers, basically. Like the negatives and the zeros. I'm pretty sure that this one is... Oh! Yeah, this one is also cover up the bad numbers. I just decided not to do that. And instead I covered up a good number. That doesn't work as well. In this fight against the treasure, we don't actually have to even play our Ouroboros. We can just pass the second we get into the fight. And he gives us the W. Now we get to fight Poe. So in the Poe fight, we want to put Ouroboros in the second slot, and that way when the conveyor belt rolls along, we have one that is unopposed. And we win as fast as possible. And you can see here it grows to a 6-6, so we want to end this act on that fight. So that's Act 2. So again, to kind of reiterate, we are building this Ouroboros deck. In order to do that, we need a total of 24 foils in order to buy the bone heap, 12 skeletons, and the Ouroboros. We fight Sawyer first, then Kaycee, and then the Prospector. And it takes practice to get good at those setup fights, but that's basically it. Against Poe here, we can just concede right away, rather than like playing through the couple rounds. And then he takes over, and we will get into Act 3. Yeah, again, I hope this was helpful. As always, join us on Discord, I'll post a link. And yeah, I'll see you in part 3. Thanks so much, bye.